Alright, so I've been fiddling around in Unity for a little bit, kind of based on a problem that I saw somebody post on Reddit about. They were working on something in sort of like a Sim City kind of simulator or something like that. And I was just thinking about how I might do that in Unity. So I figured I'd just like record myself, kind of like doing that kind of thought process on the fly and just seeing if that was useful and just kind of getting some feedback from people. If you're going to make a game, I would recommend that you actually like plan to engineer a game. Come up with like a written plan. I don't intend to actually finish this into a game, but it's just kind of like me doing some coding and running through some techniques and just kind of thinking about how I would do it. So I'm just going to hop right into Visual Studio here and kind of go over what I've been doing after I look at Unity. So I made this empty game object called the City Planner, and that's just gonna manage everything in the game. I made a tag too that's called the City Planner, so we can easily look it up with just find game object with tag anytime we need to use it. And I put some properties on the script that's on it, so I want to go over that first. The first thing I did was put the game speed, so I did this as an enumerator. You can do it as paused, slow, medium, and fast. Let's just hop in the Visual Studio and I'll show you what I've done here. So this is the City Planner script. You can see I just defined this enumerator called speed with the definitions here. And then I put a public speed property on here just called speed. The second thing I did was I used a dictionary keyed with integers for zones. Zones are their own separate script. So the city planner will have all the zones that we want to use managed on it as a dictionary. And that's just what I have here. So we can add and remove them based on the key. The integer might be useful having a unique key because you might be able to want to name your regions or look stuff up real fast, whatever. And I also defined the different kind of demands that you could have in your game, just like SimCity would, as a string and a float. I thought there were probably more than one way you can do that. You could think of demand for each zone as like having just one big pie, and then like low wealth residential being a fraction of that pie, mid and high all being a fraction. But I think I'm just gonna not worry about that in this instance and just I put three basic ones. So you have your residential demand, which I set as a float here, commercial, and industrial. So you can just look them up by key really easy and manipulate them in your code. So that's just the city planner script for now. And I wanted to start recording so I could hop into the zone script. So I'm just going to do that. Open up the zone script here, which we should be getting. Yeah, perfect, cool. So this is going to need an enumerator too, and we're going to give it an enumerator called type, which is sort of where I was at before I got here. So we defined enum, and then we can just put the type property on here and call it type. So now, just build that and save that. If you go into Unity, just pop that up there. Perfect. And then let's make another empty game object real quick and just call it zone. Empty game. We'll just call that zone 1. And you add the script to it, zone. Now you can see you have this cool little drop down here where you have residential, commercial, or industrial. So if you want to use this to have people plop pre-made zones, you can make those zones as prefabs, and you can just pick it on the inspector window here, set everything else that you want to set, pull them out and save them as prefabs. Or not, this just kind of makes it easier to sort of work with, and it's just kind of easier to worry about that than putting a bunch of properties on something that's like type or having a script for each kind of zone. It's just the idea here. So now we just have one kind of zone and we can just set properties to change how it behaves differently. And the building script I kind of want to work the same way. So there's three kinds of buildings that you can have there too. We can just open up the building script real quick, pop back over to Visual Studio, and just sort of recycle the same thing. And then put another type on there. Oh, sorry. And the same thing will happen if you put that on the game object in Unity. Um, I toyed with having like classes inside. Before I started recording, I was like toying with having like these classes. Since they all share some properties, like a zone or building can be residential, commercial, or industrial, having them inherit from one another. But I feel like once you start doing that, it actually kind of requires like thinking on your part. So you can do something like that, but for like a jam like this where I'm just kind of like flying through and thinking on the fly, it quickly like it started creating these situations where I would just be looking at the screen like not that dramatic, but kind of just be like, oh, I was working myself into corners like super duper fast. So we're just gonna do it like this for now. Same thing. So we can pop back into Unity. We'll just make we'll just call this guy a little. We'll make a little primitive for the building, right? Because in your case, you might make a fancy building as your prefab. You go ahead and rename that like fancy building or whatever, and then you stick your building script on it. As we make some properties, you might say, okay, my building is a house, so it's going to be residential. I'm just going to pick this from the drop down, pull this out, save it as a prefab. Boom! Now you've got a prefab that you can easily say like, this is a residential prefab, this is a commercial prefab. Look for how to build those, and just procedurally generate them from the pool of commercial, residential, or industrially set prefabs, whatever. Um, so let's pop back and start looking at some properties that you probably want to look at in a zone. So zones have area, so we'll make a public area. So this would be fun to set as, just have this translate into the size of your zone, and you'll reduce that by reducing the area of your buildings until you get down to nothing. So that's another property that made me think I might want to have buildings in zone inherit from the same parent, because a building has area too. So far, these two things have, properties that are identical to one another. This would be like really easy to make inherit from some behavior or from some class. Nah, I'm just looking at the modern behavior thing, but it would be nice to have them inherit from the same thing. That's not how I'm doing it right now, because I would probably have to play with, the easiest way to do that here. But for now, they're kind of similar. But now we're going to start worrying about things that make them a little different. So, for instance, the building can also have, let's say, a quality type. And we're going to call that quality type low, mid, and high. So we're going to use another enum. We'll do public enum quality, we'll call it. And we'll do low. And we'll set that equal to, let's say, 10. Mid, we'll set to 20. And high, we'll set to 30. And then public quality. Now what you can use here, let me just fix that little issue there. Now what we can use this for is that's the value that this thing is going to deduct from the overall demand, right? These are just random numbers. I just chose them right now. You tweak them for however they work. But like, let's say a low quality building reduces residential demand by 10, a medium quality by 20, and a high by 30. So if you have you get less, you know, you get less high buildings to make your demand drop to zero or something. It's just an example. So obviously, if we save and build that, and you go back into Unity, you'll now see that, oh, look at that. We've got low, mid, and high. So now you can set this as like a mid-quality residential building, or a mid-quality commercial building, or a high-quality commercial building. It just gives you that much power by putting it on the script, right? So let's go back into Visual Studio. Start looking at you know, what we want our zones to do. So, or actually, the city planner is probably the best way to go. So let's start looking at just some functions that might be useful for, I don't know, cycling through different properties that the zone might have. So let's say zones also have, what do they have? They have whether they're residential, industrial, or commercial, public type, so on and so forth. So let's just make a method here. We'll just call it, it'll return a list of zones, and we'll say list, we'll call it public list zone get zones by type. So let's see here. Oh, not well, called pass return whatever. So that's just in here. So we want to make the arguments that we pass to this the type enumerator on zones. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go zone dot type of type. No. Zone dot type. I think. I think this is how this works. That might not take that as an argument. There we go. No, I guess we just do type there. Do a little underscore. Just tripping. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we'll do list zone equals new list zone. That just went nuts. Sorry. Zones. And then we're going to loop through all of our zones in our dictionary. So we'll just do I guess you could do this multiple ways. Let's just do it with some dictionary manipulation. So we'll just do list. This is not the most efficient way, but I'm just kind of showing like some techniques that you can use to manipulate dictionaries, and it's up to you if you want to use them, if they're worthless or not. So list integer keys equals zones dot keys, and this is not a list of integers, so you have to do zones dot. Where's the keys? Oh, can't do that. I'm tripping. We'll call that got zones. So now we can go zones, which is our public guy up there. So once you do that, dot keys dot I think you need to convert it to a no, I guess it's good. No, because that is cannot implicit. Just a second here. The issue is that we have to convert this to a list. So I thought there was a way to do that. There should be a way to. There is a way to do that. Let's see here. Zones.keys. See, I'm pausing again, but it's worthwhile for me to remember how to do this. So, zones.keys. You don't need to. Oh, yeah. You don't need to do this anyway. You could just loop through each of the dictionary. You could just loop through each item of the dictionary, but I want to get this into a list. So, I know there's a way to do it. Oh. Is it this simple? Does that work? No. I can't remember it. I'm not going to look it up, so we're just going to do it this way. For each zone, zone in zones, uh, if zone dot type type little zone dot little type equals underscore type. You do what do you want here? Zones dot values. There we go. For each zone, there we go. Perfect. So if the zone type equals the type that you passed in here, just got zones dot add the little zone. And then once you're done, return got zones. There we go. Now we've made a function that will return us all the zones that we request somewhere, somehow. So, just to test it, we can pop it into the start function, and we'll just do list zone residential zones equals well, first we're going to have to get zones in here in the first place, aren't we? So yeah, we'll just continue doing what we're doing. So let's say list zone equals get zones by type, and we're going to call it zone dot type dot residential. And that should take that. Boom, that took that. But that's not going to do anything right away, so the first thing we're going to want to pull is a list of all our zones. So this is a good time to talk about tags and game objects and things like that. So let's go out here, back to Unity, and make a couple little dummy zones for ourselves here. So let's go back into Unity. Also, this is a good point to point out. I don't claim to be very good at this. This is just me having fun. You know, do what you want to do. So anyway, we got this little box here. That's not kind of what I want to use. We'll just do an empty game object. Actually, there is an empty game object. It's just a stupid box over it. So, move, move you. What is this view I'm in? Whatever. Get out of here. Leave me. There we go. So we got the empty game object. We're going to make a tag called zone. So we'll just make a tag called zone. And we'll tag zone 1 as a zone. We'll copy it. Make zone 2. Zone 2 we'll call it. We'll make zone 2 commercial. And we'll copy this again. We'll name this zone 3. And we'll make zone 3 residential so we have something to show for ourselves. So, pop back into the script. Go over to the city planner. And on start, we'll do we're going to add zones to the dictionary of zones. It's kind of lame to use a dictionary now because that's going to be a lot of work for this project. There's no reason to do that, so we're just going to change it to a list. we'll just call it list zone zones new list zone. And all we got to do is just change this guy to just zones because he doesn't care anymore because there's no difference between the keys and whatnot anymore. So first things first, we're gonna do find game objects with tag. So we're gonna do game object array objects equals find game object. Find game objects with tag, and that tag is going to be zone. And then we're going to do zones.add range because that's going to be how you add an array to a list. Objects. Oh, that didn't work at all. How do you do that? I know you can do that. I know there's a way to do that. Well, there has to be a way to do that. That is worth looking up. Oh, I'm stupid. Is there a to list? There should be a to list. No, there's a way to do this. Actually, we'll just. Oh, no, there is a to list. I know it. I know there is. I don't want to loop through this. Oh, that's the problem. I'm stupid. I was doing that all wrong. A game object is not a zone. I was trying to add the game object to the list of zones, but we need to get the zones off of each game object. So, alas, these evil days should be mine. We need to do something here. So we'll do objects. Game object, object, and object, and object. And we're not going to put this in the start function anymore. We're going to make a separate function for this. So we're going to make a list. We're going to make a list here, and it's going to be added zones. Oh, no, we don't need to do that. We can just add it to the zone because we're building it anyway. Nice. So that's going to be zone, working zone. Actually, we don't need to instantiate that everything. So we're going to do zone, working zone, and we're not going to set it to anything because at least we're going to have this zone already in memory so we don't have to do it like every time we do it down here. I think that would save time. I'm not sure. So we're going to call that working zone. Yeah, we're going to call that working zone. And zone, working zone equals underscore objects dot get component zone. Oh, Boom. Boom. So working zone will each equal that. Actually, we don't even need to do that. We can just do zones dot add. God, I'm tripping. Tripping so hard. Don't judge me. Game object. There we go. Rippin'. There we go. So that's going to add every zone that we have in the game to the zone here, to the list of the zones, whatever. Good God. Don't need that either. Tired. And then the list of residential zones will be get zones by type. So we've collected everything. We're going to get zones by type, and then we're going to debug.log. We'll loop through that too for each zone, zones. We'll call it underscore zone in zones. Pop that down here. We're going to debug.log. Do score zone dot game object dot name, and we'll just print to see if we're cycling through. Build that. See if any of this nonsense works at all. Just hit play. Zone 3, Zone 2, and Zone 1, so it printed every single one of them. Well, that didn't work. I guess I'll just leave it at that, which is a fine place to leave it. No, there's got to be a better way to do this. We can figure out why it did that. This is probably just not the best way to pass this argument here, but whatever. Somebody can tell me the better way to pass value of an enumerator, because that's not working. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, that's that.